Education has been a part and parcel of Sri Aurobindo. When he comes to Baroda and he becomes a part of the Baroda administration, the Maharaja quickly realizes that Sri Aurobindo's skill was also in the domain of English and French. So he becomes a professor of English and French in the Baroda College, which has now become the MS University in Baroda. Maharaja Gaikwad, he got an ICS almost free of cost. And he was advising. And then there is somebody also an ICS officer, Ramesh Chandra Dutt, and he comes to Baroda. And he said he has heard that somebody, young man who's come from England, is translating the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. So out of curiosity, he comes and he sees the way Sri Aurobindo was educating himself. The idea that, he had not gone to the Department of Indian Languages to learn the languages. He learned everything by himself. And so Ramesh Chandra Dutt, who is very well known as a scholar, administrator, he comes and he sees the translations that Sri Aurobindo had done because he did not know Indian languages. He did not know Bengali. He did not know Sanskrit. He quickly masters Sanskrit and does translations of a superior kind that Ramesh Chandra Dutt declares, if I knew that these translations existed, I wouldn't have undertaken the translation myself. And then, of course, he was absolutely dispelled by the kind of a soul-killing education that he saw in Baroda University, Baroda College. So I think we are not really, surprised when, people join IITs and, semester after semester, they're ending their life. Maybe they are not interested in engineering. Maybe they are not interested in physics and chemistry. Maybe their heart lies in theater arts. Maybe in performance disciplines. Maybe in literature. Maybe in sociology. Maybe in anthropology. Maybe in clinical psychology. But they have been hammered by the parents. My son has to join a coaching center and join. Look at the kind of harm we continue to do. 2040 to 2024. So we haven't learned anything from what the great masters like Gandhi, Tagore, and Sri Aurobindo have telling us. So he's noticing this kind of a soul-killing education, when the teacher has to come and read out notes, possibly from the postgraduate days, and the students are all the time laughing. Do we have to suffer this kind of a notes? And today, of course, the internet, and instead of the professor who learns and publishes, we have internet professors also, who don't do any kind of a work and research. They just read the internet and Google search, and they come and teach in the class. So I'm not surprised that most of the students would like to vote with their feet and say, give us a break. Why this kind of lectures are being given? Because we can get information. T.S. Eliot had once said that we are caught in information. We have no idea of knowledge. We are caught in knowledge. We have no idea of wisdom. We have only a proliferation of information technology. And developing the idea of T.S. Eliot, the very famous poet, I would say that we are caught in information. We have no idea of knowledge. We are caught in knowledge. We have no idea of wisdom. We don't have wisdom technology, my friends. We don't have knowledge technology. We have only information technology, which is a metaphor and of our own condition itself. The way, for example, we are, pushing information, which is going to data sciences, for example. We don't have wisdom sciences, data sciences, information technology. This nomenclature, these words are so revealing about our own present kind of a condition. And may I say, the predicament of the modern mind. So he's fed up, and then he's invited by the editor of Bande Matram. He's edited by Bipin Chandra Pal invites him. And everywhere we find, can I get a promotion? Can I get a rise? Can I join Infosys? Can I get Wipro? But constantly I must have a higher and a better pay package. Sri Aurobindo gets a salary there in Baroda, and then he's invited to become the principal of National College, and which has become now the Jadavpur University. And he comes half the salary. Have you come across anybody coming half the salary? He comes with half the salary, and then he's writing fiery editorials. He's implicated in the Alipur bomb case, and then he says, why have you put me behind bars? I'm so interested in education and national education. And then Lord Krishna says, where is the bar? And he says everywhere he sings Lord Krishna and Vasudeva. So from being an agnostic, the product of the secular West, he becomes a believer. And I think he is all the time telling us in Life Divine that agnosticism and atheism are very essential to the realization of the spirit, the world, the spiritual aspect, the spiritual view of life. There are three ideas that he is really voicing and expressing in the first decade of the 20th century when he wrote a series of articles on national education. Now I'm coming straight into the realm of education, and we will see how the integral education is developed. The first principle, he says, and it is going to shake you completely, and it has not been accepted even in the most avant-garde circles. The first principle of our true education, Aurobindo says, is that nothing can be taught. Can you ever believe that nothing can be taught? So at one go, he's knocking out the arrogance and the primacy of the teachers and the educational institution. And the second principle, he says, that the mind has to be consulted. Are we consulting the minds of the students when we are thinking of the syllabus of any institution, including the present one? We've not called for a meeting of all the students and say, in this course, etc., what are the texts that we would like to? Yesterday, I was giving a talk about the future of multiculturalism to a bunch of very bright students in the English department. I said, we have recently come up with the Norton anthology of women's writing because we have large number of the female students and male professor yet. We don't have students, female students, who can identify, who can talk about their own grandmother's experience, with their own mother's experience, because we have this kind of oppressive advertisement of detergent which by Unilever and Hindustan Lever, which is reducing all women to perpetually washer women. Because the detergent, the washing machine is constantly being manned by a woman itself. Look at the detestable manner in which the modern industry itself and the corporate capitalistic world is really crippling our own freedom itself. So given this scenario, that do you have this kind of a consent of the children and the students in the preparation of the syllabus? We don't have. I would suggest that if we are thinking of a more progressive kind of an education, we must not be afraid of the involvement and intervention of the students. I think we should have a more participatory kind of an approach that Aurobindo believed in and the mother implemented in the ashram itself and increasingly in Auroville. The third principle that he said, where corollary to the second, is that education is a process that has to proceed from the near to the far. Today it doesn't proceed from near to far. We know the best of the West from Australia to Los Angeles. We know the best, but we know hardly anything about our own neighborhood. May I say about Chandigarh, about Punjab, about Bhatinda, about Orissa, because in the kind of a mindless and brazen globalization that is going on, I think we are being increasingly told to discard the local in favor of the global. We must really discard the province in favor of the city, and from the city, the metropolis itself. So increasingly there is a chasm, there's a dichotomy between the province and the nation, between India and Bharat, and between India and the rest of the world itself. So those polarities and divisions are created because we have failed to accept the third principle of Aurobindo in the realm of education itself. So if we were to really reprioritize our own goals and ideas on the basis of the three things that he's saying, because he's saying that education comes from the word educia and says to bring forth. What is there, it has to be brought forth. And I'm sure that all my wonderful friends out there sitting at the back and the middle are saying, how wonderful, bravo, this is exactly what we want. We want freedom, we have participatory education, and we don't want anybody to decide our own destiny. We want to decide our own destiny ourselves. But how do you do it? Are you going to do it because by becoming a slave to one's own impulses and passion? Today one idea, tomorrow another idea. Not quite, my friends. The mother and Aurobindo are telling us through the five-fold process of education, how education can be really brought about. In the Arya, after this period, education is something which is constantly taking up. And then, of course, after the national education and becoming a principle there itself, and you can see, and he's talking about when he's giving a message at the time of leaving the National College, because soon he has to face imprisonment. And he says, what kind of a, callous education is it? And he was talking about, Calcutta at that time. He said, maybe there is a child who has fallen down from the stairs, and we are listening to this talk. And do you really heed the cry of the child, the callousness that he was talking about in his own time? And today the same thing might happen, and we might be products of the IIMs and IITs, and we see a child, for example, lying on the road, and we don't want to get involved, because getting involved means being dragged to the police station itself. So what kind of a soulless and insensitive and desensitizing education that we have promoted? And Sri Aurobindo had seen glimpses of that, and though he had apprehensions of that when he was talking about the need to decolonize the human mind. At the heart of Sri Aurobindo's idea of education is how to decolonize. So much before Edward Said in Columbia University in 1978 talked about decolonizing the mind in the book called Orientalism. In the foundations of Indian culture between 1914 and 18, Sri Aurobindo is talking about the need to decolonize the mind. And Deepika ji and friends, I want to tell you that decolonizing the mind in the classroom is one of the most important agendas of Sri Aurobindo and Antiumada. Then another thing that he's talking about, the left-hand part of the brain and the right-hand part of the brain. On the one hand, there is mathematics and logic on one side, and there is imagination, there is poetry and music and etc. Today, the two don't meet. NEP or otherwise, the two don't meet. Are you on the side of the liberal arts? Or are you on the sides of science and engineering and management? Sri Aurobindo is saying that they need to be really brought together. Today we have a whole bunch of people who know how to earn money. They have no idea how to spend the money at the end of the day. So they are burning their own lives also, because it is not by going to the latest mall. And Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. How do I know that I exist? And he says, I know I exist because of my power of thinking and reasoning. And today's context, globalized, capitalistic context, you might say, I shop, therefore I am. I go to the mall, therefore I am. I draw my sustenance as an individual, my identity, because I go to the mall. So look at the perverse and the diabolical manner. We have really reversed the Cartesian principle. I think, therefore I am. I shop, therefore I am. We might really go to the shopping mall and come back with whole bagfuls of goodies, and we ask ourselves, did I really want to buy this? Did I go to? And we open the newspaper and see the coupons. First time I went to America, I saw that, this Odia families that I was in, everybody had started looking at the coupons also. Why are they looking desperately at the coupons? Buy one, get 3 free. Do I want 3 free? Buy one, get 3 free. Get 4 free. So then we come back, of course. Oh, we're so excited, we have to go to the latest mall. The latest mall has opened in Chandigarh and Mohali. And Panchkula, we have to really go. There's the latest kind of a cosmetics that is there. You don't have to go to Los Angeles, to Paris, Yves Saint Laurent. We can get it in Mohali. We can get this. And have you been there? Have you been there? Have you had Brazilian coffee in the morning? Oh, Colombia. Oh, you haven't? You haven't tasted Colombian coffee? You've lost out completely. No, I have to go. I have to buy Colombian coffee. Brazilian coffee. Because how else am I going to assert that I exist? René Descartes says, I think. The reason, rationality, which is behind this whole business of the Enlightenment reason, rationality. Today we have lapped it up. Because we are all globalized. We're so modern. We're so advanced. We're so progressive. How can I not have a particular brand of, lipstick from there, or the dress from here, or Levi's jeans, for example? We have lost out. We must not be lost out. And J.K. Galbraith, who wrote the foreword to my book, An Educational Exchange, he wrote a book in the 1960s itself. It looks like an uncanny manner. We're repeating what J.K. Galbraith, the former ambassador to India, had said. He wrote a book called The Affluent Society. Affluent Society. What is the tragedy of the affluent society? Because there's a problem. Too much of affluence also creates problems. To keep up with the Jones, my neighbor has this kind of a fridge, I must have an advanced one. The kind of a competition which goes on and which is at the heart of capitalism. So this promoting this desire and the hunger for commodities itself, that is inherent in capitalism, and it creates inequality among people itself, and we paying the price. So you can see that the way things are, and Aurobindo is saying, no, that's not important. This, but we must really think in what direction arts are important, liberal arts are important, because at the end of the day, we have to know how to live. Management can give you the ideas about how to earn money, how do you live. And if you see 9/10 of our own population itself, they have no aesthetic sense, and they expect wives to come and to civilize them, for example. All the IIT types, for example, they have no idea of aesthetics. If you wear a particular dress, they'll see through you. They think that you are part of a landscape also. So no aesthetic idea. So for aesthetic development, we have to go to Shantiniketan and Vishwabharati. We have to go to Auroville and learn the ideas of the Badar. The rest of the time, we can be just brutes. Brutes earning a lot of money. And the job of a woman and the spouse is to really nurture to this caveman who comes back at the end of the day and to say, I am so great, and I will give you a shopping trip to Goa and to Maldives and to so many other places. Look at the way the whole forces, corporate forces particularly, are conspiring. Does it mean that Aurobindo is asking us to live like beggars, a life of sin denial? Not quite, my friends. Aurobindo is telling us how to live life. And Mother says Maheshwari is a very important part of life. I like Chandigarh, the city beautiful, and your school because it's so aesthetic. So aesthetic part is so important. So Mother once said that, beauty is also very important. So there are 5-fold ideas that he is giving. Apart from talking about the need to bring together science, engineering, mathematics and logic, and also the arts, liberal arts, they must come together. Much before interdisciplinarity was talked about. Then there are 5-fold ideas that he is giving us. The 5 ideas, the physical, the mental, the vital, the psychic, and the spiritual. And they coincide because they are deeply rooted on the Indic tradition. There is there is matter, of course, Annamaya Kosha, then there is a Pranamaya Kosha, then is a Manomoya Kosha, then is a Vijnanamoya Kosha, and there is a Anandamaya Kosha. If you read the story of Bhrigu and the Upanishad, and if you read the story of Satyakam in the Upanishad, you see, for example, how the Socratic method was integral to the learning in India itself. So we don't have to go back to Socrates to talk about knowing thyself. Because Indic tradition in the Upanishads, in the forest, for example, are teaching students to acquire knowledge by themselves. So you can see that at one go, the entire structure, the architecture, and the ecosystem, educational ecosystem that we have taken pride in is knocked out by Aurobindo. And I think something which is so detestable to the children and to the students, because he says it's a barbaric practice. The parental kind of an imposition is a barbaric practice. The authority's imposition is a barbaric practice. And he stands for freedom. How do you deal with freedom? He says a rank capitalist uses freedom to control and to subjugate the labor, the working class. And a patriarchal man is using freedom, my freedom, to colonize you. And you and I might be working, but at the end of the day, I'll say, I come back home and say, chai lao, paper lao. So this kind of a barking of the orders itself is so typical of patriarchy. So he is really denying that. He says that we must have freedom and we must have diversity. And we need to really bring people together, different units together. Today there is no unity. There is separatism, there is divisiveness, and there is polarization. If Aurobindo's message of education is vital, it must really make sense to the present predicament. In the Life Divine, he is talking about the crisis of evolution and the crisis of human consciousness. He says mankind has created such a huge edifice and of gigantic proportions, we don't know how to handle it. And the manifestation of the crisis, my friends, is seen in terms of the ecological crisis now. The crisis of the melting of the iceberg, we don't know. And rising of the, and the gases which are so poisonous, for instance. The demographic crisis we have. And the present crisis in the nation states, which is being visited and seen in such a diabolical manner in the ongoing conflict for the past 2 years between two Slavic nations, Russia and Ukraine, two Slavic nations sharing two common civilizations. They pitted against themselves because of the unbridled desire on the part of one man to restore the greatness of the Soviet Empire and the Russian Empire before the Russian Revolution. And in the Middle East also, we have this kind of a warfare between Israel, which was born out of this whole experience of Holocaust, and to say that never again, and that nation is pitted against the Palestinians. So everywhere there are all these things. And how do you really solve it? I will now come to the final point. After telling you about the lifelong interest that Aurobindo had, and the final days when he was busy writing, revising Life Divine, and Savitri he was dictating to his ace disciple Nirod Baran, he also wrote a series of articles at the invitation of the mother, because physical education was so important. He wrote a series of articles. Why is physical education important? You must not to take part in Asian Games, not to win medals in Olympic Games. He said physical education is important because that is the basic. And on the basis of the body itself, the development of the body, making it more refined and more skillful, we can manifest the kind of changes that he was talking about in the emotional, in the vital and other levels itself. So I think I will just suggest our own young friend not to serve anything, please, buying water. Anybody wants to help himself to the water. We must be like Arjuna in any kind of an assembly. I'm not even touching the water that I have at my disposal itself, because I'm more engrossed in the company of wonderful, audience out here, and especially the young people who are sitting at the back. And you can see the vigorous nodding of approval, because I think we have to really come out of this whole business of victimhood. Parents are victims, middle-aged are victims, children are victims, and citizens are victims. So after taking you on, I hope the roller coaster ride of instruction and enjoyment, because mother said, we have to really, when you teach in the class, mother said, we must tell the students that we are taking them on a picnic. So if this is the criterion, the PKG, I think many of the teachers are going to fail, because it's not entertainment with cheap jokes, but entertaining them and to make them involved in the whole. And therefore, I think the mind has to be involved. The mind has to be consulted. I dare say that wherever the teachers are involving the students in the business of learning, those classes are very successful. I'll come to the final stage here, because now as far as the practice is concerned. In the ashram that I went, I hope there'll be questions also, pointed questions. The first time I was there, the second year, mother abolished the examination system. And she said that you are taking recourse to cheating and dishonesty. My education is not for cheating and dishonesty. My education is for the joy of learning itself. So the examination system was completely abolished. You are surprised that I am standing before you, and I have been a professor and a vice chancellor, and with the different kind of fellowships. I went through a system which did not have any examination, and fixed examination, annual examination. And without being boastful, may I say, when I wrote the entrance examination in Hyderabad University, I stood first and got the merit scholarship. And there are anybody else, because if the foundations is strong, and if you have been given the joy of learning the subjects, sciences, arts, or whatever, according to your own interest and temperament, then I am sure you will make a success out of it. And then the mother also said that, there will be no corporeal punishment. I remember a child in the ashram school telling, when a teacher was so annoyed and irritated, he raised the finger, Ushadi, just raised the hand. And this child just caught hold of the hand and he said, Mataji marne ke liye mana kiya. Mataji marne ke liye mana kiya. And you know what the mother said? Mother rebuked and said, you have no business to be in the school. You can stand out. Because you have sadhaks and sadhikas. They're not paid employees who are demanding pay raise. To each according to the needs and by each according to the capacity. That is a Marxist principle that operates till now in the ashram itself. Mataji manne ke liye mana kiya. And it may not be just, physical punishment. It could be moral punishment also. It could be physical shaming also. Why have you dressed in this manner? Who told you to put on this lipstick? Whatever, there are other, sensitive ways of counseling, not in an incentive, callous manner. When the child really gets demoralized and recedes into the shell, is it a surprise that so many children, youngsters in our country, both in schools and colleges and elite IIMs and IITs, are ending their life? It's a soul-killing kind of education system, humiliating them and shaming them constantly. We are told about body shaming now, but I think a lot of shaming is going on in the classes. Oh, you are bright, you'll do very well. Oh, who has sent you? You are an imbecile. You are a stupid person. The word stupid is going around all the time. You are a fool. You are mad. You are stupid, for example. Why this kind of a lexicon, and especially in the educational context? I think any teacher who uses terms like stupid, idiot, imbecile has no business to be in the school itself. I think, and children should be also taught to be brave and to say, Mataji manne ke liye mana kiya. You have no right to hit me. You have to explain. And one of the examples that you sent, when a visitor came to the ashram school and he said, and he went and met somebody who was my teacher, Kirit Joshi, who was an IAS officer. And he came and mother asked him to boil milk for 6 months. Maybe the process that I went through to humble me down and to teach me the dignity of labor. And that Kirit Bhai said, you go to the class and you say, so he just went and sat at the end behind everybody. He just sat to be curious, like Anil ji or Manju ji or all of you might be interested in. So you just go and teach and sit in the back. And the student asked a question to this teacher. And the teacher said, well, I don't have the answer. After 15 minutes, you and I, can we go and look it up in the thesaurus? And today you might say that the teachers are pretentious because maybe the child will say, Mama, ये teacher को कुछ भी नहीं है, पता नहीं है, ये बुद्धू है, कैसे मिल गया PGT? And then the principal is going to call and scold. But how, for example, aimless reading is a virtue, ignorance is a virtue. Not to know something and to confess. So the art of confession and apology is not just a preserve of the religious domain or the Christian domain, my friends. It has secular counterpart also in the art of learning itself. And we don't have to talk about the Gurukul ashram and Socratic process of knowing thyself. So Sri Aurobindo, the mother, and the beautiful education system that they have devised, and I dare say that it is being really tried out in many progressive and avant-garde circles. So no humiliation, no insult to the children, but teachers and the taught are learning things together. And the ignorance of both are being overcome through mutual consultation and mutual collaboration. Then finally I will tell you about how to become the citizens of the world, the cosmopolitan. All of you know that in every street corner there is a school called International School. Right? International School. International School from Bhadrak to Bhatinda and from Trivandrum to whatever alliteration you might have, throughout, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. So that is a kind of a thing that you find. This globalization, internationalism. Have they understood what is international? Our own, the career-oriented professors and teachers in the colleges, they're all the time publishing in so-called international journals. And international journals are maybe, if you see the headquarters might be in Pune, if you go, where is this, what is this international profile of the journal? Because you make a neat payment and you get published. So that is your international badge itself. Okay? And our own government also is catering to this obsession with internationalism and is inviting all these universities of the world. You come and give some watered down, diluted kind of a system and you get a degree here itself. Because we as a nation have mastered the idea of really, watering down and making it absolutely available to people by lowering down the standard itself. Standards can be lowered. You get different universities have campuses in India in all parts. So you pay a hefty money in the private universities or whichever university and you get a degree. So internationalism. What is internationalism? Now I have in my book, there is a companion book. This is a book called Aurobindo Contemporary Reader, which has done very well in the Frankfurt Book Fair by Routledge. And there is another book that I have written called Cosmopolitan Modernity in early 20th century India. So Gitikaju, what I am saying is that if this classroom really becomes an occasion to talk about this world issues, that we are saying that we are really creating a system of education which is really going to really give skills for facing the world, the internationalism, the international world order, in terms of diplomacy in the foreign service, in terms of, for example, work in the management, international management, the Carnegie, Harvard Business School, Carnegie Business School, or the information technology or engineering, whatever. But what is internationalism? How is one going to become citizens of the world? And these tropes which are really, contradictory and artificial manner, the polarities and polarization, tradition or modernity. Are you on the side of tradition or are you on the side of modernity? Are you on the side of orality or are you on the side of literacy? Are you on the side of the tribal or are you on the side of the non-tribal itself? So tradition, orality and the tribal have so much to learn. So modernity is not a matter of dress, but modernity it is an attitude to our own thinking itself. If we are modern in our thinking, if we are inclusive, we are Catholic, we are eclectic, and we are accommodating, then we are modern. And if you do the opposite set of things that I have told you, and next time, of course, you're not going to laugh at people if somebody has not been literate. Because to be a literate doesn't mean that that person is uneducated. My mother, the renowned poet of the state, was responsible for my education, had studied up to class 9. And Ushadi will tell you what an advanced person she was. And same thing about our grandmothers and our grandparents. May not have gone to higher education, and yet how much of learning they had. So in the span of 40 minutes, my friend, I have taken you in a roller coaster ride and to tell you about a whole gamut of experiences of Sri Aurobindo. And central to my endeavor in this time has been to connect between Sri Aurobindo's ideas. There are 3 things that I have said. Of all the interests that Sri Aurobindo's had in multiple disciplines, multiple areas, education has been a lifelong pursuit with him, because in the first decade he wrote the system of national education. And by the time he left the body, he wrote a series of articles which were later on published on supramental manifestation on earth. So you can see that in between, for example, the entire gamut of educational experiences were there, and he left it to his one-time disciple, later on collaborator, the mother, to really implement. It was implemented in 1943 in an organic, spontaneous manner when the children from East Bengal came, because mother at that time did not want the children because it was thought that they will spoil the yoga and the concentration of the sadhaks and sadhikas. But they came because the Japanese were bombing Chittagong and other places. So the devotees, disciples from Bengal came, asked the mother, can the children be there? But very soon it was really realized that the children's presence was not a source of distraction for the sadhaks and sadhikas. With the arrival of the children, the entire ashram atmosphere underwent a change. It blossomed, like flowers blossomed, and activities in the playground. Mother came to the playground and told stories, including the stories, Anilji, the other day I was telling you about meeting many world personalities, like Angarika Dharmapala, the Buddhist preacher, an exponent of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, and of course in Paris, about Abdul Baha and many people. So we would have been poorer if the children had not been, because the mother told so many stories about her experience, her occult experience in Paris and Algeria with Max and Thelma Theon, and her visit to Japan, for example, during the 2 world wars, and coming to Pondicherry and accepting Sri Aurobindo as the guru who is going to give the answer to the present crisis of consciousness that mankind is encountering. Thank you very much.